Good morning again. This is Chris Mitchell, Magistrate Judge, covering the case, although I'm here in Roosevelt County. Ms. Narvaez, can you hear me, ma'am?
Yes, Judge Mitchell, I can.
Thank you, ma'am. I see that there is still a screen share going. I would ask. Okay, who's speaking, please?
I'm Raymond Harper. I'm trying to figure out how to mute my phone. I got a new phone and I can't figure out how to make it mute.
Yeah, I believe if you use *6, that should do it, sir.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome. But remember
Okay.
that you'll have to do that again to come back to us.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome, sir. Ms. Griffin, I'm going to ask you right now to pause your presenting, and so that way I can see who we have here and go through, if you would, please.
Okay.
Thank you, ma'am. I appreciate that. And obviously you are here. Is Mr. Griffin here? I'm getting some background noise, maybe some technology issues from the 209 area code, last two digits 06, but I see that it appears to be connected twice. Who is that, please?
I hope it's not me.
No, sir, your 505 area code, last two digits 11.
Yeah, that's me.
Thank you, sir. And since I've got you, what is your name, please?
Raymond Harper.
Fair enough. Thank you. And no, in fact, you, sir, were the one that just asked how to mute your device. And since you're not necessarily a party to the case until you are called, I would ask that you please mute your device.
Okay.
That's *6.
Okay. *6. Thank you.
Yes, sir. You're most certainly welcome.
I'm not very techy.
That's all right. Again, I'm looking for Mr. Griffin.
Judge, I believe that he may be
we're on here now.
on the 806 ending in 22.
Fair enough. And I think I heard him speak up. Mr. Griffin, can you hear me?
Yes, Mr. Guy. I'm present.
Oh. Okay. Please, anyone online, please don't speak up unless I call you by name. This is very difficult. I noticed that most of you are here by phone instead of by video, which make things a little more difficult with the understanding the preference would have been for video. But I did hear that Mr. Griffin is on the line, and that's the 806 ending in 22. So thank you for that. Is Mr. Lord on the line?
Yes, this is my phone number. We're together. Me and
Okay.
Corey are sitting in the same vehicle here.
And I appreciate that. It may or may not be an issue we'll talk about here in a little bit. I believe, thank you, Ms. Narvaez, for helping people get in while I'm doing some other things. Do I have Mr. Braithwaite on? Again, Mr. Braithwaite, are you on or there at the courtroom?
Judge Mitchell, I'm looking into it right now.
Thank you. Again, I'm getting a lot of chirping or background noise from area code 209, last two digits 06. And I would ask at this time, please mute your device. Thank you very much. In fact, while we're on the topic, for those just joining us, good morning. My name is Christopher Mitchell. I'm the magistrate judge from Roosevelt County, and I'm assigned preside over the cases we have this morning. I would ask everyone online, please mute your device except for Ms. Griffin, and I'll explain why in a minute, and then Mr. Braithwaite, although there may be some technological issues, the clerk is working as hard as she can to fix that so we can get moving forward here this morning.
Judge Mitchell,
Yes, ma'am.
we don't appear to have him in the lobby, but it was brought to my attention that he called just a little bit ago because he thought that the hearing was occurring at 8:30. I'm not sure, but he should be calling in by phone.
Thank you. As I have a policy of allowing time because life does happen, miscommunications, misunderstandings, and then emergencies in life, I typically wait a short period of time to allow for things of this nature. And so I will mute myself and will stand by, but again, just for a bit.
Judge Mitchell, in looking at the complaint that was filed by Mr. Braithwaite, he has the phone number beginning in 301 and ending in 79. I do see a phone number beginning with 301 and ending with 79 on the line.
Mr. Braithwaite, are you online? Mr. Braithwaite, can you hear me? I'm getting something still from 50511, and I believe that may be you, Mr. Harper.
Yeah. Let me hit star 6 again.
Please.
Oops.
I'll tell you what, Mr. Harper, I'll hit mute for you, and then, but it may be difficult for you later to reconnect. And so if for some reason later, if you are called, you may have to disconnect and then reconnect if star 6 isn't working for you.
Okay. I'm sorry. I can't figure out how to mute this phone. It's a
All
new
right,
phone, and I've never muted it before.
Well, I can appreciate that wholeheartedly, but again, it is the asterisk or the star and then the number 6, and that should work. But I'm going to mute you now so we can proceed.
Okay. I'm so sorry, Your Honor. I'm
all
not
right.
very. I'm an old man. I'm not very techy.
Believe me, we all have help in certain areas, and I'm there with you. And so I muted you just so we can proceed. Again, I'm looking for Mr. Braithwaite, Mr. Dwayne Braithwaite. Mr. Braithwaite, we'd have reason to believe that you're online, but
I am here by phone. Can you hear me?
I can
Hello?
now. Yes, sir. Could you hear that I've been calling for you?
I have been, and I've been responding. I've been saying that I'm on phone, not on the computer, because the site will not allow me entry.
I'm sorry to hear that. I know there are a few of us that are on, but
I've been on for 5 minutes, sir. I'm sorry. I've been responding to you, and I don't know why, but now you hear me. Okay, but I still cannot get online. Can you hear me?
I can hear you. Yes. Thank you.
Okay.
This
Yes,
is
sir.
the penalty for doing things remotely. It's convenient for many people, but it teaches us all humility and flexibility at the same time.
Yes, sir.
But I do have you, Ms. Griffin. You announced previously that you would be speaking for not only as the plaintiff, but as the defendant, if you will, in the alternate case filed by Mr. Braithwaite, even though we did do a joinder. Is that still the case, that you will be speaking on behalf of your group?
Yes, Your Honor.
Thank you. We are here at M38 CV 2023-0191. As we go forward, I will swear you in. From there, I will ask if there are any motions or issues before the court, and I'll start with Ms. Griffin and then go to Mr. Braithwaite. And when I'm looking for motions specifically, or if there was a reason perhaps to continue, not that I would want to hear that, but if there was an emergency or there was something that was screaming attention, we would attend to it as appropriate. Then, if the parties are prepared, and once we get through any potential motions, I will start with you, Ms. Griffin. I will then go to Mr. Braithwaite and then back for final response from you. I will address motions. I will address objections as we go through the proceeding, with the understanding disagreeing with the other side is not an objection. They must be legal objections. There may be times that I ask questions for clarity. It is in no way to indicate my position on any matter whatsoever. It is only to ensure that I understand what it is you're telling me. I ask that you maintain relevance as you present testimony, evidence, or witnesses to ensure that it is relevant to your claim, or in this case, the counterclaim put forth by Mr. Braithwaite. As we go forward, you may hear that, although I would thank you not to. This is a civil proceeding in name and in practice. And so again, we do not interrupt each other. Those online, I ask you to remain muted unless you are specifically called to testify. And so I appreciate your patience and your flexibility, if you will, because I understand that this is difficult. It is frustrating, but we are working in a remote environment, which makes it more difficult. So I want to ensure that each of us can hear what the other is saying. And so as we go forward, Ms. Griffin, I can see you. Mr. Braithwaite, I can't, but I ask you both to please raise your right hand. Do you solemnly swear or affirm the testimony you give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, under penalty of perjury, starting with you, Ms. Griffin?
I do.
Thank you. Mr. Braithwaite?
Yes, I do.
Thank you. Ms. Griffin, do you have any motions before the court?
No, Your Honor, I don't.
Mr. Braithwaite, do you have any motions before the court?
Yes, Your Honor, I have one request that most judgments of default be entered against defendant Coy Griffin and Chris Lloyd for no response to my petitions.
I apologize. I got a message from a clerk. Apparently, we're having an issue. Okay. Having some technological behind the scenes. And so you have a motion for default, although you named 3 defendants in that case. And so do you have anything else you'd put forth?
Ms. Griffin did respond to my complaints. Defendants Coy, Griffin, and Chris Lloyd did not make any response as required. Therefore, I respectfully request that judgments of default be entered against them. And we continue on with the hearing.
Thank you. That being said, Ms. Griffin, I'll let you speak first. Go ahead.
Your Honor, if you will notice on my response or my answer to the complaint, Coy Griffin and Chris Lord are also on there.
You're referring specifically to the answer to civil complaint in 23-205, file stamped May 31st, 2023. Is that what you're referring to?
Yes, Your Honor.
Thank you. Does Mr. Braithwaite, do you have anything further you wish to add?
No, sir.
I have heard your motion for default based on lack of answer. Hearing from the parties, I believe, and taking notice of the answer to civil complaint, file stamped May 31st, 2023, the motion for default judgment is denied. Any further motions from Mr. Braithwaite?
No, sir.
Thank you. Ms. Griffin, are you ready to proceed?
Yes, Your Honor.
Thank you. Mr. Braithwaite, are you ready to proceed?
Yes, sir.
Ms. Griffin, do you intend to call witnesses?
Yes, sir. I do.
How many and who, please?
I have 3 witnesses. Chris Lord, Raymond Harper, and Greg Guy.
Objection to the last 2 witnesses. I have no discovery evidence that who they are or what they'll be called for. Well, I know who Mr. Harper is, but I have no idea what evidence he is supposed to be presenting.
Ms. Griffin, did you put forth a witness list or make available any discovery as discussed at the previous hearing?
Yes, Your Honor, I did. I sent it by certified mail. If you recall, I did request a correct address to send that to, and Mr. Braithwaite gave me a correct address, 44 Dusty Lane, Tularosa, New Mexico. So I did send a certified packet.
May I ask when?
It was sent on the 15th.
Just for
Of
clarity,
what month?
what, please?
The
Beg your
15th
pardon?
of what month? The 15th of what month?
Mr. Braithwaite, please allow me to ask the questions.
I'm sorry.
Thank you. Ms. Griffin, please clarify as to the month.
I sent it on July 15th.
Thank you.
And I did.
Objection, Your Honor.
Okay,
I have an
this is not going to work that way. She just answered the question. Are you renewing your objection to the last 2 witnesses?
No, I'm still on that. But she sent this July 16th, which is 2 weeks after I left the residence. I'm no longer at that residence. I am in Maryland, sir. And she is aware of that. I notified the police. They did a welfare check after I left. and she knows I'm not at that address, and so she sent this underhandedly. That's why I object.
Let me be crystal clear. Characterizations or adjectives that are unnecessary or irrelevant will no longer be tolerated through the remainder of the proceeding. Am I understood?
Yes, sir.
And when I point out at the beginning, this will be a civil proceeding, we will put forth facts only. And that will be the case on both sides. However, you bring up an interesting point, and I appreciate that. Ms. Griffin, as I look to your complaint, and I'd like you to correct me if I'm wrong, you are looking for a writ of restitution only. Am I correct in that?
I do have, I am asking for compensation for, expenses and costs incurred. And I do have that itemized. I will present that. It was also in the packet that I sent to Mr. Braithwaite. It's the only address that I had.
My question is, and I'll make it clear, are you seeking a writ of restitution for someone who is no longer in the property?
Your Honor, there's no point.
I would tend to agree, but I have to ask, right?
Yeah, I agree with you.
Okay, it's your claim, and so I have to be, if nothing else, I think courtesy demands that I ask each of you on what you're going forward on. And so then I look at this, I'm looking at your, well, you know what? There's the issue. Please allow me a moment. Does your original claim include in 191 anything other than, of course, filing and service?
No, Your Honor, I believe the response that I sent to case 205, which has been consolidated, it does have
An attachment B.
Yes, sir. And I do have some additional that I will present.
So the caller from the 425 area code, I ask you please mute your device.
Yes, sir.
Thank you. Okay. And so just for clarity, Ms. Griffin, in CV 23-191, I have that you withdrew the request for a writ of restitution. And is it in fact the only thing you're claiming in that might be court costs and service fee? Because I'm hearing that your counterclaim is only from the original claim from Mr. Braithwaite. Do I have that correct?
Yes, sir. When the two cases were consolidated, I believe that would be included.
Thank you. I just want to make sure, because my thought is I may switch the order simply because now you are claiming the service fee and then a filing fee on one case, but your case in chief is in fact a counterclaim to what Mr. Braithwaite has filed. Make sense?
Yes, sir, it does.
Mr. Braithwaite, do you have any witnesses you intend to call?
No, sir.
Fair enough. Then that being said, I believe it more appropriate that I start with the claim from Mr. Braithwaite and then go to Ms. Griffin, and we'll go from there. Mr. Braithwaite, please present your case.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Start off, Your Honor, my name is Dwayne Braithwaite. I'm a painting contractor from Maryland. I've been in business since 1997. I've done dozens, at least 50, over 50 houses, properties. I specialize in getting properties ready for the market. Okay. Over the years, I've been known as called Dwayne the Painter. My email is dwaynethepainter@yahoo.com. Customers pay me with Cash App, Dwayne the Painter. And the reason I'm pushing this painter is that I am not Dwayne the carpenter. I'm not Dwayne the plumber or Dwayne the slave or anything like that, the day laborer. Okay. I was contacted by Chris Lord back in March off the internet to do, well, first he had given me some money for to pay my phone bill due to a TikTok that I had posted. I wasn't asking for money, but he sent me money to pay my phone bill. Okay. And then about a week later, he said Chris Lord, defendant Chris Lord, contacted me again and asked if I was interested in coming to New Mexico and doing some paint jobs. I'm like, yes, I was, because I was desperate for work. I was not, as the defendants have said, homeless, living in the woods, desolate like that. I'd like to, if I could ask, I can't see, I don't have a computer, but I would like to ask one of the clerks to please pull up my land tax record that I had entered into evidence.
Well, before we do that,
Yep. Okay.
I would like you to explain what it is you're looking to present, and then ask to submit it as evidence, and then ask to publish it or present it as you go forward. And that will happen for both sides as we proceed.
Okay. All right. So anyway, okay. I told Chris that yes, I was definitely interested in coming. I would definitely come to New Mexico and do work. I had no problem. I'm a single man. I would come there to do some work. He said he had to run it by Coy Griffin, who is in charge of, who owns the house. He told me he is the owner of the house that I was going to be working at. And I said, fine. And he said he'd get back to me. A couple of days later, Chris called me again, put it on speakerphone, and where Coy Griffin, myself, and Chris talked over the entire, all that needed to be done Coy told me that he owned several properties in New Mexico, and one of the properties was a house that he wanted to totally renovate, and that the second was a house, a bed, Airbnb, that was in his wife's name, his ex-wife's name. I said, fine, I can do all that. I'm a painting contractor, been doing it for years, for decades, like I explained already. And he said that, I mean, we discussed how we would do it, and I told him that I was my driver's license in Maryland had expired, and that I needed a driver's license, and I was going to give him an awesome deal, room and board, and he helped me get a New Mexico driver's license. Okay, I have text message listed in evidence confirming this, and I have a video recording out of Coy Griffin's own mouth detailing that he is going to put when I get there and do this work, do the work that needs to be done, that he's going to put the utilities in my name and to give me a lease agreement in my name to have 2 documents proving New Mexico residence, and that's all on the video. He never did this, but anyway, so I had to get an ID to come to board the plane, and the defendant said that they needed to still clean out the house and make it ready for painting. I asked them several times on the phone from Maryland that is the house ready for painting, and they both said, Chris Lord and Coy Griffin said, yes, the house is ready for painting. So they sent me airfare. They paid my airfare, and I boarded the plane here in Washington, D.C. Chris Lord and Coy Griffin both picked me up in Coy Griffin's truck at the airport in Texas, somewhere in Texas, and then they drove me to the house at 44 Dusty Lane, and they said that they showed me the house. It's not a house, it's a double wide trailer with an addition. Here's where I'm going to be working at. And they showed me the work. And he said, here, and he took me to the back bedroom. Here's where you're staying at. Here's where you're living at. Okay. So we had already made the agreement while I was in Maryland that they would help me get my driver's license and that they would provide room and board for the 2 jobs. The first job that they took me to, they said it was ready. It was not. When I got there, it was not ready. And they told me before I left that the second job, they had a few things left to do, and it would be ready for me to hang drywall and painting. So when I get to New Mexico, first thing I see is that the job is not ready for painting. There's debris in every room, and they still have demolition of walls that they wanted to be done. They wanted to demo the furnace out of there and out of the hallway, and it was a lot of work a lot of demolition and work that still needed to be done. It was not ready to paint. So we had an agreement before I left Maryland. Now that I'm in New Mexico, I've been there a day. I'm talking to Chris Lord and Coy Griffin, and we make a new agreement. I say this is not ready, and I'm not raising a stink about the extra work, but I told them that I'm going to have to do this in 2 phases now. I'm going to take on the 75% of the house that is ready for painting, that was almost ready. I still had to empty debris out of every room, furniture and what you name it. But I did that. I didn't complain about it. I was happy to have work. And I told them that I'll do the 75% of this house that is ready. And by the time I get this finished, that the defendants would have the demolition done, the 25% ready that wasn't ready, they would have that ready by the time I finished the first 75%. Okay, so I immediately started working, Your Honor. For 4 days, I caulked the house. The house had never been caulked. I caulked the house. I gave them my A game. I went after this like this was my last chance to get my driver's license. I worked every day, 6 days a week, 7:30 to 3:30, 4 o'clock every day. And within 3 weeks, I had finished the first 75%. And At the end of the 3 weeks, the defendants had not done one thing to get the 25% ready for me to paint. And that's where problems began. Because I told them, I was reminding them, I was telling them daily of my progress, and that I was getting to the end of the first 75, the first phase. And they showed up on the job pretty much every day around whatever time, 11, 12, whatever. They never did any work. They were always there doing TikTok lives of me doing the work. They were asking for donations all nonstop. They were asking people online to come help Dwayne the painter finish this project, but they themselves did absolutely not one bit of work. Okay. And I was telling them that I'm not doing the demolitions. I'm not doing I'm not doing the plumbing. Okay. That's not what I'm there to do. I was there to paint the premises, the interior. That's what I was there to do. And that's where the problem came in. They stopped feeding me. They were feeding me every day home cooked meals the first 3 weeks. But then when I finished the first phase, they started trying to force me, to bully me into doing the work that they were supposed to do, that they agreed to do. And I was verbal about not that they had agreed to do this. I did not. That's not what I came to New Mexico to do. But I ended up having to do the demolition of the furnace. I ended up having, just because I wanted to eat, because I'm there completely broke at their mercy, 2,000 miles from home, Judge. And they told me, Chris Lord said, Bible says, man don't work, he don't eat. But, I did what I agreed to do. Then I was doing what they were supposed to do, and they still weren't feeding me, Judge. I did additions. I did cabinets. I didn't agree to do the cabinets. I did a lot of work that I did not agree to. I was hoping that they would just do what they said. And I did start telling them, I'm like, when am I going to get the lease in my name so that I could go get my lease license? When were they going to put the electric in my name so that I could go get my license that they had agreed to do? And they did not do it. And it is also required by New Mexico law. I'm a tenant. After I came there and made a new agreement with them as a tenant, they were supposed to provide me with a lease agreement. And they didn't even do that by the law. They were supposed to do it as part of the agreement, and they were supposed to do it per New Mexico law, give me a lease agreement. They never did it. Okay, so that was, we're at week 6, and, I went ahead and did the demolition, did the work that they were supposed to be doing, and then I completed the paint job, and I'm getting on them about getting the stuff that they were supposed to do. And they had stopped feeding me. They had stopped providing for my needs. They started trying to bully me, push me into since I'm so unhappy, I could go on home now. And they wanted to send me back home without my license. I'm like, no, that's not what I came to 2,000 miles for. I came to get my driver's license. That's when, and there was just argument, and they're trying to verbally force me into doing this work, which I ended up doing without compensation, and arguing with me constantly. So I'm walking away from them. We're at the property, and I walk outside, and they come outside and like, well, if you're not, you don't. Corey Griffin says, if I wanted you off, all I have to do is throw your scrawny old ass over the fence, quote unquote, what he said to me. At that time, there was one of the sheriff was on one side of me, Corey was on the other side, and I just did a little spin around when he said that, and I went back into the house. They came back in the house following me and saying that, you have no, Chris says you have no right to be here. It's not like you have a right to be here. And that's when I said, well, let's see about that. And I called the police, 911, because it was very confrontational at this point. You know, he had already just threatened to throw my old scrawny ass over the fence. So I called the emergency 911 to have a landlord-tenant and reported a landlord-tenant dispute. They're trying to force me to leave, and I'm not leaving until I get my driver's license, is what I told them. Police came out, confirmed I have a right. I am a tenant, and I have rights. They can't just put me out on the street. So that's when, you know, the problems, I mean, it just kept getting worse and worse. And the police told them that they had to notify me before coming to the premises. They didn't give me any, I mean, after the police came out that day, they came onto the premises, into the house without knocking. I have videos of that I want to present. That night they came. The next day they came. The night I called the police the first time, they came and they started getting all the cleaning supplies out of the house. You know, they got the brooms, the cleaning stuff, the vacuum. They got the grill that I was going to be cooking off of. There is no oven there at the premises. They took everything needed for making a living space to make it as hard on me as possible. And that's what they did. They came into the premises without notice numerous times. It got to the point where I called the police. I at 6 times had the police come out there 6 different times, and they each got 6 different warnings saying that they couldn't do what they were doing, but the police would not ever arrest them. And this went on for a week or so, maybe 2 weeks, until, they cut off my electric one time outside there at the well pump. They cut off the water 2 times. And then they came to the house in the middle of the night. 2 times they came and removed the light bulb in the middle of the night from the front porch, which I was trying to watch the well, you know, so they couldn't cut off my water or electric again. But they, you know, in the middle of the night, I'm sleeping. They come and got the light bulb out of there. And then another night they came, turned the water off again. And that was the second time. And then they came to the exterior wall where I was sleeping and banged on the wall in the middle of the night and woke me up in a dead sleep. And at that point, I called the police again. The police told me to keep doing everything I'm doing. I'm doing everything correctly. Just keep doing everything and documenting everything, which I have done the best I could. And eventually, Coy did get arrested, you know, for trespassing, 3 counts of trespassing, 2 counts of harassing a witness. And they have not done what they agreed to do, help me get my driver's license. And it's on. I'd like to go through the evidence now if that's the right procedures, Judge.
You may present your case as you wish. If you have evidence that you wish to submit, if you believe if you believe you've covered foundation and you believe you've covered authentication, therefore you can ask to submit evidence and present.
Okay. Well, just to summarize, when I was in Maryland, we had a verbal agreement that I was going to come to New Mexico and do 2 jobs for them in return for room and board, and that they helped me get my New Mexico driver's license. They agreed. They sent me airfare, and I came to do the work. When I get to Maryland, first I asked them, is it ready for painting? I did ask, is it ready for painting? Because I've done this for a long time. And they said, yes, it is ready for painting. They took an extra week. They said that for me to get I needed to get an ID, which was true, but they were supposed to be getting that first job ready to paint. It was not ready to paint. When I get there, I see that And then we make a second agreement. This time, I'm not making the agreement just as a painting contractor from Maryland. I make an agreement with Coy Griffin as my landlord, and I am his tenant. I stayed there overnight, and they did not. When we made the second agreement, the 2 phases, and they did not do anything to uphold their agreement. They're in an agreement, which was to get the second phase ready for painting. I ended up having to do all that. It's like they had a Huckleberry Finn thing going. They're begging people for donations online and helping. That it's just like a little con, a scam. But anyway, they weren't trying to do the work, and they thought that they could force me to do the work. What they did, I ended up doing the work, and I didn't get any food for it in return, they had completely cut me off at that point. So, as a landlord tenant, we did have an agreement, and he did. The defendant, Coy Griffin, did not uphold his end of the agreement. Therefore, I asked that I get the relief I seek in my petition. Could we please go to the evidence now?
Please tell me what it is you'd like to submit.
Land tax record for Maryland for me. For Waldorf Wildlife Autonomy Zone, that is my corporation. That is my property. I can't see if it's up on screen, Judge. I have no screen. Do you see the?
Hold on, please.
Okay. All right.
Ms. Narvaez, is it that you have a drive of evidence submitted, and then once requested by a party, it can be put forth?
Yes, sir. I do have that, but I will need the specific information of which case it was submitted into and what exactly they're looking for.
Fair enough. And this one, he's asking for the land tax record.
Maryland.
You have it from Maryland. Thank you. Is there an exhibit number or some easy way for her to see it?
I believe I understand what he's looking for. He did not put exhibit numbers on anything.
I heard no objection.
No, sir.
No, I heard no objection from Ms. Griffin, and so please present it.
Yes, sir.
This just proves that I am not homeless, as the defendants were saying. I've been on a downward streak since 2008, but I still have property. And what they were claiming is just not true, that I was homeless and desolate and blah, 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 whatever. I did not need a place to stay. I live on this property in a camper. And that's just misinformation. The second thing is I'd like to request the clerk to please pull up.
One moment, please. One moment, okay, please, because I need to look at the first one.
Okay, I'm sorry. I can't see what's going on, Judge. I'm sorry.
No, I understand. I have what looks like it says SDAT, real property.
Yes, sir. That's it.
Looks like a print from a website. Is this what you're referring to, where it talks about owner information and account number?
Yes, sir.
It's got the zone. Is there anything else you'd like me to know or take notice of as I look at this?
It's listed as Waldorf Wildlife Autonomy Zone, which is my LLC, and that this is my property, and I am not homeless. That's all what I wanted to take from that.
Thank you. Would you scroll down a little bit more, please, Ms. Narvaez? Is there anything further on that?
No, sir.
Thank you. Ms. Narvaez, is that the bottom of the document?
Yes, Judge.
Thank you, ma'am. Mr. Braithwaite, before we put
Yes,
up your second exhibit, please explain to me what it is.
Okay. The text from Chris Lord, we had discussed what needed to be done for me to get a New Mexico driver's license on the phone. And he said that I just needed to have two pieces of mail coming to me at New Mexico, to New Mexico. Okay. So I texted him, and this is what I want you to look at is I needed the address where I'm going to be getting the driver's license. And if you look at, I don't have it, Judge. I can't pull it up on the computer. I can't get on. But
I understand that. You've
so
said that.
it says exactly what our agreement is, that this is one document that I will use to get my New Mexico driver's license. And if you could look at that.
I heard no objection, and so Ms. Narvaez, please put that forth or publish it if you will. This is file stamped June the 9th, but clearly not when it occurred.
No, that's probably when I sent it.
It is. It's the file stamp.
Okay.
It had a time in the morning, but no date on it.
There's a date on the text.
Would you scroll all the way to the top? Thank you, ma'am. I see it again. I see a time. Is there something to the very top of that? Okay, that's all right. That's showing today. Okay, please scroll down for me. Is there anything further on that document, Ms. Narvaez?
Appears that's the last of it there at the bottom.
311, 42. Thank you. Mr. Braithwaite, do you have any other
Your Honor,
evidence? Oh, go ahead, ma'am.
I think it should probably be noted, if you scroll back to the top of this document, this is a communication between Chris Lord and Mr. Braithwaite. I just would like to make note of that.
I heard you, ma'am. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Braithwaite,
Yes, sir.
anything further to present?
No, sir, not on that point. I have the third point.
Please proceed.
Okay, so the third is a copy of a letter that I mailed from Maryland to the New Mexico license that Chris Lord provided. And that was going to be, this is incorrect. I know that now that it needs to be fit from utilities, or there were specific requirements. It couldn't be from me to me. But at the time, I was told that I just needed two letters. So I would like to look at this letter. Again, I don't have it in front of me, It's got my address on it in Maryland, the Waldorf Wildlife Autonomy Zone, and it's got Coy Griffin's address to the that I'm supposed to be going to. Again, this is not accurate, but it was at the time. That's what I believed. I just needed I needed 2 letters, and this was going to be one of them. So this proves that we did have an agreement. I mean, it's proof towards the verbal agreement that we have.
So are you submitting this and requesting that I look at this letter?
Yes, sir. I mean, it just has the address that
Please don't explain it again.
Have.
Sir, I
Okay.
asked you a very clear question, a yes or no question for a distinct purpose.
Yes, I would like you to look at it.
Thank you. Hearing no objection, Ms. Narvaez, if you would, please, ma'am. Is there anything further regarding this?
No, sir.
Thank you. Please proceed.
Next, I would like to show a 2-minute, 55-second video that I submitted into evidence. If the clerk could, in this 2-minute, 55-second video, you get to hear Coy Griffin come out of his own mouth exactly what he was supposed to do. This is at week 6 that I'm here. I was there in New Mexico. This is right out of Coy Griffin's mouth, exactly what he was supposed to do, and helping me get my driver's license. He says it word for word. This video took place the day after I called the police on them the first time, and they were in the house illegally again. And I had already asked them to leave. They would not leave. We're sitting there arguing. And I got this 2-minute, 55-second video I would like you to listen to. It says it all out of his own mouth and what the agreement was. And he did not do.
Hearing no objection.
I don't object to this, Your Honor. However, I would like to make note that the exhibits that have been shown to this point were not disclosed to me.
Not disclosed, but you're not objecting. Thank you.
That's correct.
Do I comment here, Judge, or not?
She did not object, so no, sir.
Okay.
Thank you, though. Ms.
Judge
Narvaez,
Mitchell,
go
I'm
ahead.
going to need some sort of explanation of the video because we do have 3 videos and I'm not sure which one he's needing.
The one that's 2 minutes and 55 seconds.
She doesn't have a way to see that without opening each one. Do you have the title, perhaps, of the video that you're referring to?
It's a bad picture. I can tell you it's a bad picture of a sink is the way it starts off at. There's only 3 videos.
I appreciate that, but I asked you for the title of the video, please, to make it as easy on the clerk as possible.
I'm sorry, I don't have a title. I did not know.
Ms. Narvaez, please start the one that you believe it is, but don't just play it long enough to have an opening, and so that way we can ensure that it is in fact the video described by Mr. Braithwaite. It appears to be on a counter. Pause for a moment, please, on a video. I see what appears to be a countertop, a sink. It does have some items in it,
That's it.
and there are letters. Okay.
That's it. That's it.
There is supposed to be audio as well. Am I correct?
Yes, sir. The audio is, the picture really doesn't matter. It's the audio, Judge. I wasn't pointing at,
I understand. Please push play, ma'am.
Yes, Judge.
Is there a delay on the audio itself? I'm not hearing anything.
No, there's no
I
delay.
think I need to change a setting if you'll give me just a moment.
Yes, ma'am.
There is a chance we will have some feedback. I'm going to try it now.
Yes, ma'am. Still not getting any audio at all.
Okay, sir, I'm not sure how to correct that.
Are you, as the clerk, are you getting audio from that video at your desk?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so you're hearing it, but for some reason it's not sharing it. Am I correct?
That is correct. I think I have one other route I can try.
Thank you. I'm still not getting any audio. Is it possible if you held up your phone receiver to your speaker so that way it may come through for us?
I apologize, sir. Can you please repeat that?
Is it possible for your, I don't know if it'll work and maybe it'll create that loop, but to hold your hand receiver from your phone up to the speaker so as it plays, because we're not getting audio through the presentation, and so I'm hoping that that'll work.
Judge, did you catch what I had said?
No.
I'm sorry, sir. If we could take a brief recess. I could step off to another computer and see if I could get that to work.
Certainly, as it's been submitted, not objected to, and we're going forward, and we need to see it. We will take a brief recess. I'll stand by. I ask the parties to stay close, so that way, as soon as we have an answer one way or another, we can proceed. So again, we are at recess, but don't actually, just mute your devices and stand by for me, please.
Yes, sir.
Thank you, Judge.
speak? Hello? I don't.
I'm still here, Mr. Braithwaite, but again, we're working through,
That wasn't me speaking.
I heard you say, can you speak? And I saw your number highlight. And so that's why I addressed you directly.
Somebody said something. I said, what? I couldn't hear it. And
Thank you. We are at recess. All parties, mute your devices. Everyone on the line, please mute your devices. So the parties are aware. I was just briefed that IT is working the issue and hoping to have a repair inside 5 minutes. And so now officially, we'll set this as a 5-minute from now. We'll come back from recess and we'll see where we're at. those online, this is Chris Mitchell that can't see because you're not connected with video. IT is involved. They are working on it. And they had it working there for a second, but there has been some sort of complication, and the clerk is trying to bring IT on to just simply do it. And so we're hoping to have an answer here in the next couple of minutes.
Your Honor, could I ask a question?
Go ahead.
I have the videos on my phone, which is where I recorded them. Is that permissible or not?
Now, even before we get to that, I don't know that they would share since you're connected just via phone.
If I played it, y'all would be hearing it. And the defendant has been served copies of this also.
Your Honor?
Go ahead, ma'am.
Yeah, I think I would object to that. I think it would be better if it's shared through the court.
While I hear the word better, not necessarily what I'm looking for in terms of a legal objection.
Unacceptable.
How about unable to authenticate is my issue with it.
Right.
And so we're going to hold off. Although Mr. Braithwaite put forth that was disclosed to you and provided to you, and yet you had announced that while you didn't object, that his exhibits were not actually disclosed to you.
This particular exhibit was.
I can appreciate that. Thank you. So it's just 1 through 3 that you were referring to?
Yes, sir.
Thank you, ma'am.
road test.
I do not want to see you. I do not want to see you.
Please
I do not
pause
want to
right
see
there.
you.
Well, what are you trying to do?
Why are y'all hollering at me?
Okay.
Pause. Thank you. I want to ensure, Ms. Griffin, please come back to us. Thank you, ma'am. I just want to ensure that you can hear. And so there's that. Could you in fact hear the audio playing as it worked?
Yes, sir, I could hear it.
Fantastic. Mr. Braithwaite, could you hear it as well?
Yes, sir.
Fair enough. Kudos and many thanks to the clerk and to IT. Please
Amen.
press play and we will resume proceeding.
Why are y'all in here again hollering at me?
That's not hollering. What do you want?
Huh?
What do you want?
You said there was a phone number here, so I was looking for the phone number, and then you
Well,
jumped.
I'm so-
You started hollering at me, screaming. Okay?
I didn't know you were so sensitive. I'm sorry, sensitive.
Okay, where's the phone number?
If you go to mvdonline.com
Okay, I'll do
and you
that.
click on Alamogordo,
I will
there'll
do
be a
that.
phone number.
And
Okay.
you're saying that I need to do this before.
Yes.
Listen, let me finish the sentence.
Okay.
Let me finish the sentence. You're saying I need to do this before things are transferred into my name at this address?
That's correct.
All right, thank you.
No, let me explain to you. Let me explain to you.
Okay.
Let me explain to my jailhouse attorney here that's so knowledgeable of the law.
Okay.
Whenever we went into the MVD and we sat down and we said, what does our friend need to do? Because he can't come in here and ask you what he needs to do, so we have to come do it for him. What does our friend from Maryland need to do to get his driver's license? And she said, the first thing that your friend from Maryland needs to do, since he can't come in here and do this himself, is schedule a written exam. The written exams are from 8 to 11, 1 to 3. So you need to call and schedule to get a written exam, and then after that, they're going to schedule you for a road test.
Okay.
And that's when you're going to have to leave here. And whenever you need to go in for your exam and your road test, I want you to call me and Chris, and we'll give you a ride in there, okay? Mm-hmm. So we'll give you a ride for your written exam. We'll give you a ride for your road test. And then when that's done, then we're going to go down to the power company, and I'm going to put your name on an account where you can get a utility bill. I don't know if you've had one of those before in your life, but it's a utility bill, and it'll be in your name. And we'll get one of those. And then what else have we got to get? And a lease agreement. And I'll have a lease agreement for you to sign. We'll take those two documents back into the MVD, and we're going to get your driver's license for you. We went and found all this information out for you because you couldn't make any phone calls, or you couldn't get on the internet or find any of this information out. So now we're explaining it very clearly for you. So the first thing you need to do is Google Alamogordo MVD on your phone that you're on all day. Google the MVD, call them, and you need to schedule a written exam. That's your first step. That's your task for the whole day.
That's what I'm gonna do. Mm-hmm.
And maybe you can get a hold of them whenever you're sitting there and they're not doing anything.
Oh, well, I mean, I would be doing something if it was ready for me, like y'all agreed to. Hello?
Go ahead, Mr. Braithwaite.
Yes, sir. You heard it out of Corey Griffin's own mouth what he was supposed to do, which was have the utilities placed into my name. He never did that. He never gave me a lease agreement. You heard him say he was going to do that. And not only that, he was supposed to, by New Mexico law, before I even occupied the house, give me a lease agreement. He never did that either. And that's about, I mean, so there's the verbal agreement out of Corey Griffin's mouth. It's, and I that's what I wanted to take away from that video. For the next video, if we're ready to continue on with that, or do I continue on, sir?
It's your decision on what you present, sir.
Okay. Well, okay, You heard the verbal agreement from my testimony, and you heard it out of the defendant's own mouth that we did have a verbal agreement, which he never did. He never put the utilities in my name. He never gave me a lease agreement to help me get my driver's license. Okay. I'd like to go to the next video, a 5-minute video of the defendant, Boy Griffin and Chris Lord, in the property again without permission. After I've called the police, they've been notified not to enter without a 24-hour notice. Here they are inside harassing me again and searching my properties, searching the entire premises on video. It speaks for itself, sir. I'd like for if the clerk could please find the longest video. It's 5 minutes. There's only 2 videos left. One is the dark screen. That is not it. The dark screen is the last video. So the 5-minute video, if the clerk could please help me out.
Thank you. Please, while she's doing that, she's prepared. It appears to start again. Looks like I see some floor, potentially a counter. I'm not exactly sure.
That's it. That's the one.
Do not hit play yet, please. Hearing no objection to submission of the video. Thank you. Now push play, please, ma'am. Oh, and it was just flooring.
If we'll try to work towards a positive outcome and a positive solution in this way, it'll be better on everybody. But if we continue this, what's going on, it's going to just be rougher on you, and it's going to put us behind on our project. I don't know if you enjoy walking to town and you enjoy walking everywhere. We'll give you a ride. We tried to give you a ride yesterday, and you refused to get into the truck with us.
When you took the,
When I turned around and
and you
pulled over
came,
and asked you to get
got
in.
the grill, that was the only way I could cook something if I had some food that you were supposed to
Meaning
just.
if you had some food, we got videos, you got food all
You got food in your
Okay.
refrigerator right now.
Is that-
There's milk, there's ham, there's.
Am I eating the same way I was the first 3 weeks?
Oh my goodness. You
Am I?
want home cook? You want Courtney to be feeding you like she was for
That-
3 weeks every bite?
That was the agreement.
Do you want Courtney? Do you
That
want,
was the agreement.
Okay, but let me ask him. So do you want Courtney to cook you a home cooked meal every night? Like
Once in a
she
while
has
would be
since
nice.
March 13th, since you got here, you freeloading loser?
Oh, I'm a freeload loser? now?
Yes,
Okay.
you are.
Okay,
That's
so
what you're doing right
there's
now.
some.
What, you want us to feed you every night?
That was the
you want to sit
agreement.
around and
That was the
decide for
agreement.
yourself?
That was
You
the
want
agreement.
food? You
That
got
was the
ham and
agreement.
cheese? You have tuna fish right up
You know,
here.
you
don't
can't
have
use
food?
food and medication as
You
a
got
tool,
medication?
as a tool to
Do you have
coerce
prescription?
forced
Medication?
labor. You know
Or
something?
do you just want to get stoned?
So once again, here we are. Once again, here we are arguing to no end. Y'all are mad that I want you to do what you agreed to do, and you all have changed.
We're arguing because I'm looking at ham and cheese and bread.
The ham is sour. The ham is sour. It's like 3 weeks old.
Yesterday it was
Okay. So here we are. Here we are again. Y'all are junkie. You cannot use food as a tool to coerce forced servitude. All right, we had an agreement.
We didn't have no agreement.
We had an agreement.
We helped you and that was.
Okay.
We're not
Okay.
helping you with your license.
Okay.
Your claim. Did we not explain to you exactly?
Okay, I don't want to argue again. I don't want to argue anymore. I don't want to argue anymore. All right. So I have a right. I am the legal tenant here. I have a right as the legal tenant here. You have no right as a landlord to burst in here anytime you want. Legally, you have to give me 24 hours written notice. Okay? So this is the law that y'all are unfamiliar with. Oh, no, I'm not listening. I am not listening to your demons no more.
We have no demons, do I?
Okay?
So
So you're going to continue on. I'm asking you to leave. Please leave or I'm going to call the police.
I've got tools in here that I'm going to get.
I'm a legal tenant here. I am the legal tenant here. Please leave. Please leave. I don't want this argument.
Can I have it? You give me the right.
So you're not leaving. You're not leaving.
Get my stuff out here?
Go right ahead. Stop arguing. Get it and go. Leave me alone. Leave me alone. You should look up something, buddy. You should look up something. Human trafficking by fraud and coercion. Human trafficking by fraud and coercion, Coy. All right?
So now you're saying you've been trafficked, you're a victim of human trafficking?
Have you?
Oh my God.
Is it funny?
It can't get any stupider.
Okay, I'm asking you, you want a judge? You want a judge to decide it? I want to get my license and get away from your
I'm trying to step you through.
No, you're arguing with me. You're arguing with me. Yeah, go, Chris, please.
I've got some bits and stuff and I need to get out of here.
In the future, please give me 24 hours written notice before you burst in here. Okay?
For one more strike and you go to prison for life because you're a three-time.
What law have I lost? That was 30 years ago. That was from 30 years ago.
If you harm any of my family or anybody,
why would I do anything like that?
I will charge you and I will put you
I wouldn't blame
the rest of your life.
I wouldn't blame you.
So you remember that.
Yeah, you remember.
You remember that as you.
All right. Do you want me to
go back to where you spent 14 years in federal?
That was 30 years ago. 30 years ago.
14 years.
30 years ago. 30 years ago. Give me written notice before you burst in again.
Okay, something that Ms. Griffin was referring to that in reference to Chris Lord acting, she made a hint that Chris Lord was acting on his own. As you see by that video, Chris Lord is not making any decisions. Coy Griffin makes all the decisions. He told his partner, Chris Lord, to be quiet. He told him to do things. Coy Griffin is in charge. He is not aware. Ms. Griffin is not aware either of what's going on here. I'd like to go to my third video now, if that is possible, please.
What is it that will be contained in that video? Or is Ms. Griffin, are you stipulating to the submission and then publishing of the video?
I have no objection, Your Honor.
Thank you. Then for that, then please, Ms. Narvaez, if you would, please. The third video.
You want me to describe it? Did you want? Okay.
Just briefly to ensure that it's the right one, but it's the third. I believe you mentioned it started out with a dark screen. Am I correct?
Yes, it's in the middle of the night where the defendants, Coy Griffin and Coy Griffin and Chris Lloyd, excuse me, Judge, coming in the driveway and in the nighttime and then parking out by the water well, harassing me, shouting at night. And that's harassment. And it's where Coy Griffin claims that this is his property. Also, by the way, I'm like, nope. That's all, please. Ms. Clerk, I appreciate your help.
Ma'am, please push play.
Hey, Dwayne. Do you even realize how silly you are videoing us from my property as we're driving down a public road and you're sitting in there videoing us like, what What are you doing? Making a documentary on squatting or what? Are you going to start a reality show called Squatters? I mean, I don't understand why you're videoing us as you're standing in property squatting in property that I own. It makes absolute no sense. And you're living there without sanitary conditions, without water. I don't know how you're flushing the toilet. I don't know where you're peeing and pooping at. I don't know. I don't know what your plan is. If you're planning on sitting out here feeling sorry for yourself till the end of time and blaming us for all of your problems, I'm very sorry that you've got problems, Dwayne, but those are your problems, not mine. You need to grow up, and we need to work.
Please proceed, Mr. Braithwaite.
Did everybody hear that?
I can't speak for everyone, but I can tell you I did hear the audio from the video.
Okay. That's all that matters. Last thing I would like to submit as evidence is the electric bill in Coy Griffin's name that I submitted. Ms. Clerk, I'm sorry.
I've heard a request to submit and then subsequently publish.
No
Hearing
objection.
nothing from the other side. Ms. Narvaez, if you would, please, ma'am.
Yes, Judge.
This appears to be a bill amount due $12.02 for 44 Dusty Lane in the name of Mr. Griffin. Looks like bill issued in November of 2022.
Yes, sir. I speak now.
Yes.
This property previously belonged to Coy Griffin, and it was transferred into his mother's name a couple years ago when he was involved in litigation and he wanted to shield his properties.
Your Honor, I object.
I'd hear that objection.
Your Honor, Mr. Braithwaite is conveying inaccurate information.
That's a disagreement. What is your objection, ma'am?
Well, I object to the implication for the reasons that the property was transferred, not the fact that it was transferred.
So I'm going to overrule that, but I would look for, make sure that this is relevant to your claim as you proceed, Mr. Braithwaite.
Yes, sir. This is to show that while in fact the property is in Miss Griffin's name, in reality it is Coy Griffin who calls all the shots. He was the landlord. He was he paid the bills. And so when whatever the agreement was that they entered into is not my business, but she was aware that this was like a shell type corporation of hiding assets.
Your Honor, I object.
Should accept
When you hear the word
responsibilities.
when you hear the words "I object," I ask that you please stop, and I would hear that objection, Ms. Griffin.
Your Honor, Mr. Braithwaite is describing a situation that is totally inaccurate. Referring to a shell, I highly object to that.
On a personal note, you can object to it, but in terms of in a court proceeding, ma'am, I would look for a legal objection to statements, and I would reiterate to Mr. Braithwaite, first, overruled. Second, you must stay relevant to the claim. Please do not add things that are outside the issue at hand.
Okay, sir. Ms. Griffin she may not have been aware of me in the beginning, but she had not, as the owner, restricted her son from being landlord of the premises. It was totally within his.
Your Honor, I object.
What's the objection, please?
Relevance.
Mr. Braithwaite, do you have a response?
Relevance is that she is the owner of the property. She is responsible for what happens there, and she was allowing her son to take care of all the matters as landlord, as contractor, as everything. But she is ultimately responsible for what happens for the work that I did at that property.
So I'll overrule, and please proceed on to your next point.
Okay. Judge, I'll just sum it up here. I was called to do 2 jobs. I, in good faith, acted professionally throughout the entire process. I did what I was contracted to do, called to do. I painted the complete residence without their help. All right. And they were supposed to provide help. The agreement was that they would the defendants would put the property utilities in my name. They did not do that. You heard it from Coy Griffin's own mouth that he was going to do that. He never did that. He said he was going to give me a lease agreement. He never did that, Judge. And also by law, he was supposed to, before I even occupied the residence, supposed to give me a lease agreement. He never did that. Judge, I don't know. In hindsight, it looks like they never intended to do what they planned to do, what was agreed upon doing. But nevertheless, they did not do it. I did what I was supposed to do. And they did not do anything that they were supposed to do. I completed the job. I completed the paint job that I agreed to do. I did the job that they were supposed to do. They put me through pure agony, starving me to death on the location, forcing me to do work, trying to get some food and water. I was in a desert location, 3 miles from the nearest water that I had to go walk to the dollar store 3 miles and carry back 2 gallons of water at a time, Judge, just to survive. And they were using these mechanisms of starvation to coerce me into getting out of the agreement that they made.
Mr. Griffin, Mr. Braithwaite, do you have new information? You have covered all of this. Please.
Okay, that's it. I closed, sir. I'm sorry. That's all I have to say. I've done the best I could.
I appreciate that. Thank you, sir. And so now I look to Ms. Griffin to put forth, in essence, your side.
Thank you very much, Your Honor. First of all, I'd like to say that I was never aware that Mr. Braithwaite was there. I have owned the property since, for at least 3 years and or more. And Raymond Harper and I entered an agreement last year for him to move to La Rosa, and he was going to live in this house. The house was not livable. Yes, the electric bill has been in Coy's name because he used to live there. They needed the electricity to operate their equipment to do the repairs. So the electric bill is in his name. I never had any kind of an agreement with Mr. Braithwaite. I own the property. My son lives in another house down the street, and he was trying to get the house ready for Mr. Raymond Harper to move in. Mr. Harper is in a high altitude. His doctors have told him that he needs to move to a lower altitude. He has COPD, which is causing heart issues. So we were going to prepare the house for him to live there. My name is on the property. So everything should have been cleared through me. My son and Chris Lord are very good friends. And Chris Lord met Mr. Braithwaite on social media approximately a year ago, I believe. And Mr. Braithwaite spoke about being homeless and being off the grid and not having a driver's license, not having the ability to work, and that he was going to go dark because they were going to turn his phone off. So Chris Lord, out of the kindness of his heart, felt sorry for Mr. Braithwaite. And he told him, he said, get me the information, I will pay your phone bill. I'll send you the money, which he did. At some point, Chris asked him if he wanted to, he appeared to be down on his luck. So Chris, again, out of the goodness of his heart, offered to get him a plane ticket. Told him he could fly into El Paso and that he would pick him up. And Mr. Braithwaite told him, he said, I have no identification. I don't have a driver's license. I don't have anything. So, so Chris told him, he said, you start whatever you need to do to get yourself some identification so that you can board the plane. And I will get you a plane ticket. So that's what he did. It took him about I guess a week or 10 days to get an ID, not a driver's license, but an ID so that he could board the plane. So Chris sent him a plane ticket, and then when he arrived in El Paso, Chris went down to pick him up, and he said to Coy, "Come go with me. I'm going to go down and pick this guy up that's flying in from Washington." So that's That's how he arrived. And that's when Coy met him, when they picked him up at the airport. They traveled back to Tularosa, and it was decided that he would stay there because where Coy lives, he only has 3 bedrooms. Chris was in one, and Coy's little boy Gunner had his bedroom, and Coy had a bedroom. So they decided they would let him stay in the house that they were working on. I didn't know about any of this. I just knew that Coy was working on the house, trying to get it ready for Raymond to move in. He lives in Farmington, and this was a warmer, lower altitude, and so that was our plan. And I did enter into an agreement with Ramey Harper. I'd like to refer to him as Ramey. That's
about Mr. Harper.
Mr. Harper would be okay. At any rate, I do have some exhibits that I would like to share.
Please explain what it is. Go ahead, Mr. Braithwaite.
Well, I mean, she paused, but I mean, I object to any exhibits that I have not been served being heard. And she has not served me. She has not served me any exhibits to me except for a list of expenses that I totally dispute. That's the only thing she served on me, Judge. So I object to any other evidence.
You have a response to the objection, Ms. Griffin?
Yes, Your Honor. When we had the pretrial hearing, I asked for the address. If you recall, I was very specific. I need an address and where you will receive mail. That's where I sent all of the discovery, and everything here was in it. I sent it certified. I do have my certified receipt.
It's your objection, Mr. Braithwaite? Go ahead.
Yes, I object. I have not been served anything. She was aware that I had moved out of that premises, and my mail is being forwarded, but it has not reached me yet. Object on those grounds. I have not been served notice. And it also, second point is that I believe there's a time limit for putting out evidence. I mean, I haven't. I forget the date that she said she sent it, but I mean, it hasn't been 20 days, and I haven't even got it. So I object on those grounds too, sir.
Thank you. One moment, please.
I did send it 10 days prior. I sent it certified to the address that Mr. Braithwaite gave me.
One moment, please. One moment, please. I'm looking for something specifically.
All right.
Thank you.
Question?
Please wait. I've asked for a minute.
Okay.
I'm looking for something specific.
Okay, sir.
Ms. Griffin, you said that you made or disclosed and made available to the plaintiff for inspection how many days prior to this date?
10 days.
In Rule 2501, disclosure by the defendant. And I will use that because it is most favorable to the situation. Unless otherwise ordered by the court, not less than 15 days before the trial, the defendant shall disclose and make available to the plaintiff for inspection, copying, photographing any records, papers, documents, or other tangible objects in the defendant's possession, custody, or control of which the defendant intends to introduce in evidence at the trial. As you pointed out, it was discussed. So you may present the list of expenses only, and I will exclude other evidence.
Your Honor, most of the other evidence is it comes from Mr. Braithwaite. I don't know if that would make a difference.
Unless you're using what he has already presented, no, ma'am.
Okay. Your Honor, at this time, in the interest of justice, I would like to ask for a continuance in order to send all of this discovery to Mr. Braithwaite where he can receive it. I would like to have it all.
As I have heard the motion, although we are mid-trial on this, and we would discuss timelines as required, which we have broken based on recusals and other issues. It has been stipulated up to now. I did hear that Mr. Braithwaite has objected to it. I will deny the motion and we will proceed, please.
Okay. Okay, I do have a list of expenses that comes to $2,718.79.
You broke up. I apologize. Could I get that amount one more time, please?
The expenses, I have one itemized list, and I do have the receipts to support it for $2,718.79.
Thank you. I heard no objection. You may present it.
I do object, Your Honor. Oh, I have not seen I've not seen this evidence. I have her attachment B, but there are no receipts. She said she will get the receipts to me eventually. She's never given me any receipts, and I contest pretty much every bit of her attachment B. Of the
May I be clear?
718. Yes, sir.
The request was to submit and publish the expense list. You have previously stipulated to that. You said you did not object. You objected to other things, but that was the one item you did not. I hear you loud and clear on receipts, and so therefore, publish, please.
I also have the additional expenses. I have a filing fee of $178.77 for the subsequent suit that I had to file. I have attorney fees of $960.36. The processor $116.
Would you please put it on the screen?
Yes, I do have it. Oh, let's see. I've got to share it.
Yes, she's submitting evidence that I haven't been seeing, sir.
I have already made my ruling. You yourself said that you saw the list of expenses. I'm waiting for that to be published, so I might take a look at it.
Okay, sir.
Your Honor, can you see this?
I can see a screen that shows a folder labeled receipts and
No.
a Word document that says additional expenses.
Okay.
Please open the list of expenses only.
Okay. I'm having trouble opening it. I can see it, but I can tell that you are not able to see it.
I've seen the cursor moves around a lot. It looks, I saw you open, we're back on a folder. You need to open the additional expenses folder, as that's
Right.
where you were.
There it
And then
is.
the Word document. Let's see if that opens.
I have it open.
Unfortunately, it has not opened for me.
Okay.
And Mr. Braithwaite, since you cannot see it, no matter what we do, I'm going to ask that you read from it slowly. I did hear you say $178.77 for a filing fee.
75. Yes.
75 cents, thank you.
Attorney fees, $960.36.
Objection, Your Honor.
A process server.
Please hold on. Mr. Braithwaite, what is your legal objection?
She is presenting evidence that has not been served to me, sir. Those attorney fees, the first fee that she said, that has not been served to me. I have attachment B only. I don't have any of the other things that she has just brought up.
What is listed on attachment B, please?
Would you like me to read it?
I
need
can
to
show
find
it to you, Your Honor.
Please do not. We will not have direct communication between the two of us via email, ma'am.
No, I say I can show it to you, Your Honor.
No, fair enough. You can put up attachment B if you have that.
I have it up.
For some reason, I'm not seeing it. I'm still in that previous screen that's just a folder. And actually, it's a folder with two folders in it and an image 3849. Nothing is actually open that I can see.
Okay.
I, in fact, now have attachment B from the filing, and it specifically, it is the filing in M38 CV 2023-0205 labeled attachment B.
Okay. So you can see the 27.
$2,718.79 reads total of all expenses incurred to date.
Yes, that was as of the filing. I would like to refer to Mr. Braithwaite's page 4, where he refers to, it's about the middle of the page. He refers to breach of contract.
I see there's a single line that reads for breach of contract, and this is in page 4.
Yes.
Mr. Braithwaite, are you familiar with what she's referring?
My complaint, yes, sir.
Excuse me?
Yeah, I know the line, yes, sir.
Thank you. Go ahead, ma'am.
Mr. Braithwaite is not a licensed contractor in New Mexico. He, in fact, lost his contractor's license in Maryland. So you know, I have issue with him accusing breach of contract.
Please present your facts to dispute the claim or have a counterclaim.
He did open the door. I did not put this information in the disclosure. However, he did bring up that he was a licensed contractor, that he was a contractor in Maryland. And I happen to have the information that would contradict that. Would I be allowed to produce that?
I would ask that you explain the relevance to you disputing his claim or your counterclaim.
He is claiming breach of contract. Number one, there was never an existing contract. I own the property. I never entered into a contract with Mr. Braithwaite. He has made a lot of insinuations and a lot of accusations. However, they are not founded. So this is something that seems to follow him wherever he goes. Excuse me.
Objection, man. Is
Mr. Braithwaite, was it, I heard the word objection and nothing further.
I'm sorry. I answered it myself. This is disputing what she's claiming to be fact. I'm at fault. I apologize. Take it back.
I appreciate that. Withdrawn. We'll move on.
Beg your pardon, Your Honor?
He withdrew his objection. Please proceed.
Okay. I do,
You do what, ma'am?
I do have proof. Let me see, it's back on the other one.
Would you please stop presenting so that way you can go through your documents and what you will, but then I need you to proceed with either disputing the claim put forth by Mr. Braithwaite, or then tell me that you're done with that and then move into your counterclaim.
Okay. I don't know, Mr. Braithwaite did claim that he was, this is something that I did not receive, the notice of his property, that he owned property. And I do have evidence here that that he was evicted from that property.
Ma'am, please
Yes.
stay relevant to what he is claiming, the 5 prongs of his claim, and go from there. I ask, just in the interest of time, that we maintain focus on the issue at hand, please.
Your Honor, this is Mr. Lord. May I speak for a minute?
No. You will be given the opportunity, sir, but not just yet. But thank you, though.
Thank you.
Ms. Griffin, do you have anything further on your dispute of Mr. Braithwaite's claim?
Yes. Mr. Braithwaite is claiming pain and suffering. We have experienced pain and suffering to the extent that Mr. Braithwaite actually had my son arrested for entering my property. Not only that, but he claims that he has been harassed. However, nothing has been mentioned about the fact that my son has to drive right by the place where Mr. Braithwaite was living to take his 8-year-old son to the school bus and then pick him up in the evening and take him back home. And nothing has been mentioned about Mr. Braithwaite standing in the yard, yelling, videoing with his phone, using profanities and vulgar hand gestures while my 8-year-old son is in the pickup. Mr. Braithwaite has harassed. After our last hearing, I received text after text after text from Mr. Braithwaite. I received 7 texts about 5 minutes apart, harassing texts. I was going to show them, but since I'm not able to produce anything, I will just explain. Mr. Braithwaite has harassed us beyond belief. And I do have some people here that will testify. Some of them have witnessed it, and others have experienced it. Mr. Braithwaite lived in that house for 4 months. He has never paid 1 dime of rent. He did do some painting. I actually solicited an estimate from a local licensed and bonded painting company. And the painting, including tax, was about $3,700. It was $3,500 plus tax. So, Mr. Braithwaite, if you look at his complaint, he initially quoted $7,500. He is not licensed. He is not bonded. And a licensed and bonded painter gave an estimate of approximately $3,700. Originally, I know that he feels sorry for himself because he has to walk to the travel center to get drinking water. He had to do that. If he had just taken up residence in the city, he would have been able to walk to the corner market and get drinking water. He did have water. He just wanted bottled water. But he did have water. I made sure of that. The pretrial hearing that we had, he complained that the water was off. And you made it quite clear that I needed to have someone go and make sure that the water was on. So I did mention that I would like to have Chris Lord go, and you recommended that that was not advisable. Chris Lord is a plumber, and he would have gone over it to see what was wrong with it. I did have a contractor go and check the well. I wasn't able to get it done the same day. I had him go the next day. And there was a bug between the points. He said all he had to do was flick that bug out. that would have been very easy for Chris Lord to go over and remedy. Mr. Braithwaite has complained that they turned the water off. However, the breaker had blown initially. The first 6 days when Mr. Braithwaite complained about the water being off, it had blown a breaker. So it's unfortunate that he didn't know to breaker and get the water running sooner than 6 days. We have done everything possible to try and make this right. And I will say that the additional expenses that I have had have run this up to approximately $4,500. Just trying to accommodate Mr. Braithwaite. When I had no contract with him at all. None. Not written, not verbal. He has been a non-paying occupant of the property. And I'd like to say, while I have the opportunity, Mr. Braithwaite's supporters have done a pretty good character assassination of me since all this started. I was raised in a very structured home by a career Air Force pilot, and I have an issue with this kind of chaos. When I first received a call that the police were at my property, the first thing I did was call dispatch. And I let them know that I had never heard the name Braithwaite before. Unfortunately, they did not check the records to see who the owner of the property was. I think it's important to check the documentation. I did take Mr. Braithwaite. I went and visited with Mr. Braithwaite initially, right after the police were called. And I took him a copy of my notice of value and showed him that I was the owner of the property and that I had no knowledge of his presence there. This has been a construction site since he landed there. And he has done nothing but demand that I have carpeting put down and that I have someone pick up the trash and that that I have appliances installed and that I have carpet laid. He has demanded all these things. And then he was gone. And the neighbors were the ones that told my son that he had been gone, that they hadn't seen him. The neighbors have been, they feel like they have been harassed. They can't step outside their door without him taking videos of them with his phone. The whole neighborhood has pleaded with me to do something about this. So, Mr. Braithwaite lived in my house for 4 months while we paid the electric. We provided him with all utilities, and I would like to say, my son, and we all saw the video, my son actually attempted to satisfy him once he became difficult. I think that, I know that my son was trying to help him get his driver's license so that he would leave. He had done some painting, and if he had been paid for it, it would have only been a day wage, because he is not a licensed contractor. So I just I know that I wish Mr. Braithwaite no harm. I told him that the first time I met him, but he has he consumed my life for a while, and I object to his accusations of starvation and human trafficking and fraud. And he was brought to New Mexico out of the goodness of Chris Lord's heart. And Chris and my son tried to accommodate him. But he became very belligerent and very difficult. You heard on the video that he wanted Courtney to prepare the evening meals for him. She welcomed him into her home with her children, and she didn't want him there anymore, not around her children. So to insist to Coy that his ex-wife provide a cooked meal in the evenings is unreasonable. I believe that that Mr. Braithwaite found himself in a comfortable situation. He never, that I know of, he never made any attempt to improve his situation. He didn't, he didn't, that I know of, he didn't look for work. My son and you saw that on the video, tried to help him get his driver's license. I'm very glad that Mr. Braithwaite did not follow through and take his tests, and then try to hold my son to his, to his statement that he would give him a lease agreement and put his name on the utilities. Anybody's name can be on the utilities. A lease agreement, that would have been. So I'm glad that it didn't get that far. I don't know if Mr. Braithwaite ever got his driver's license. I know that my son gave him a ride in to take his test. And I don't know where he went from there. I know that he never had a lease agreement, and he never had the electric bill in his name. So if he got a driver's license, I don't know how I don't know what he used to get that. But it did not include any kind of a lease agreement at 44 Dusty Lane. I would like to call, I don't know if Greg Guy is on the line.
Mr. Guy. Mr. Guy.
I'm here.
Thank you.
Objection.
Go ahead with it.
I have no idea who Mr. Guy is, sir. Not been served notice of anything about Mr. Guy.
May I explain?
Please.
Mr. Guy is Mr. Braithwaite's next door neighbor.
Does he have firsthand information regarding the claim and or your counterclaim? Because I don't see him mentioned, and so I just want to make sure that I'm clear. And this is relevant to specifically what has been claimed and counterclaimed.
It could be, yes, contributed to the pain and suffering.
Are you
on whose part?
Which is in the claim.
Just so I'm crystal clear, I will ask questions. Mr. Braithwaite, you've been warned once before. Please do not repeat that. When you say pain and suffering, you mean in the claim? Because I think that's what you said, but I couldn't quite make it out.
Yes, sir.
Fair
Yes,
enough.
sir.
Thank you. I think given the circumstances and what I've heard thus far, I will allow it, however brief it may be. Mr. Guy, can you hear me, sir?
Yes, sir.
Do you solemnly swear or affirm the content, or excuse me, the testimony you give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth under penalty of perjury?
Yes, I do.
Please state your full name.
Gregory Guy.
Thank you. Ms. Griffin, you may ask him questions.
Mr. Guy, you live right next door to Mr. Braithwaite, is that correct?
Yes.
That was when he was there.
Correct.
Okay. And I know that you had concerns that when you all stepped out into your yard or drove away from your house, that he...
I'm going to stop you. Please ask him a question, a direct question.
Can you, Mr. Guy, tell me what your concerns were with Mr. Braithwaite?
Well, it felt like anytime we were out in the yard, if we were doing something or if we left, he was standing in the window with his phone in his hand taking pictures and videotaping. And it bothered my wife more than it bothered anything.
Mr. Guy, did
But-
you consider postponing your vacation?
Yes, we did.
For what reason?
Because I felt uncomfortable with him sitting there. I was always concerned because if I could add this in, he was always flipping his lit cigarettes off the porch out into the yard. One of the things I was concerned about is fire, because everything is so dry here.
Mr. Guy, did you notice him harassing Coy Griffin when he would drive by, and Chris Lord?
I never personally saw him stand in the window and flip them off, but I would hear him say things in the house after they would drive by. I could, he was just mumbling to himself, I guess.
Mr. Guy, did you ever have any other concerns about Mr. Braithwaite's behavior?
Well, I don't
Please
know.
answer for yourself and not from the individual behind you in the room, sir.
Yes, sir. No, I guess I never, not really. He was, I don't know, he was just sneaky. I just didn't trust him.
Thank you, Mr. Guy. I have no further questions, Your Honor.
Thank you. Mr. Braithwaite, do you have it?
Can I?
Mr. Braithwaite, I promise, I will come to you every time. We will,
Okay.
when it's appropriate. You may now ask questions, but they must be in the form of a question to Mr. Guy.
Yes, sir. I remember you now, Mr. Greg. I know you as Greg. Was there ever a fire at this location? No. Never a fire. So your concern was not valid? Is that correct? Throwing a lit cigarette out into the dry grass isn't valid? Was there a butt can there?
Gentlemen, no, everybody stop. I want to make sure that it's clear. Mr. Braithwaite may ask the question. Mr. Guy, you are to respond to that question, but please do not ask questions back. This is not a discussion. It is merely a question and answer. Does that make sense, sir?
Yes, sir.
Thank you. Mr. Braithwaite, please restate your question.
Was there a butt can right there on the porch of the front porch? I have no idea. Okay. No, I don't know. You don't know. Okay. All right. Fine. You don't know. All right. So what did defendant Coy Griffin say that I was there at that location doing? You were squatting. Squatting. He called me a squatter, correct?
Let me stop. Please do not ask questions that make Mr. Guy testify to what other people have said.
So, Mr. Guy, your concern was with me being a squatter. Is that correct? Yes. I have no further questions, sir.
Anything on redirect?
Yes. Mr. Guy, I think that it appeared, did Mr. Braithwaite make you uncomfortable, you and your wife, when he was taking videos and pictures of you?
Yes.
And Mr. Guy, did you make a report to the state police to that effect?
Yes, I did. It was a verbal report.
Thank you. No further questions.
Thank you. Mr. Guy, while you are welcome to stay on the line, of course, I don't want you to feel that you're required to do so, but I will ask you, please, sir, to mute your device.
Yes, sir.
Thank you. Ms. Griffin, I would politely remind you, I believe it was Mr. Lord that wished to address the court and testify. And you had also named him as a witness. And so that's just a reminder that I did promise that he would be afforded the opportunity to speak to the claim.
Hey,
or
Judge, this is Chris Lord. Sorry, we had an issue with the phone and it took us out of the room, but we're back in. So we
Thank you,
haven't
sir.
heard the last probably minute or so.
I'm sorry to hear that, but I'm glad that you are back. Ms. Griffin, proceed, please, ma'am.
I will defer to Mr. Lord, or I can call him as a witness. But if he has something to offer.
He's a named defendant, and so I think at this time, Mr. Lord, keeping in mind, do not speak based on what someone in the room or in the truck may say to you. I ask that it be solely you and your ideas, and I must ask, do you solemnly swear or affirm the testimony you give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth under penalty of perjury? Mr. Lord, you may be muted. There's been a lot of comings and goings, but Mr. Lord, are you still on the line, sir?
Yes, sir. We had to switch phones. We have an issue with the phone we was on. So we have switched phone and back. We are back in.
Fair enough. And so will you be still using the 806 area code number?
No.
Okay, then I will disconnect
Your Honor,
at this
that's
time.
the phone number that we're calling from is 505-235-9239.
Roger that. Thank you. And so, just for clarity, Mr. Lord, do you solemnly swear or affirm the testimony you give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth under penalty of perjury?
I do.
Thank you. Did you hear me when I asked you to please make sure that you are not speaking on behalf of anyone else, but only testify as to your personal knowledge regarding any dispute of the claim and then anything you would have in furtherance of the counterclaim?
Yes, sir.
Thank you. Please proceed.
Are you just giving me free reign to talk, or is somebody asking me questions?
No one will be asking you questions. Please put forth, and please keep it as concise and as relevant to the claim and your dispute, if you choose to dispute it, and the counterclaim.
Okay. Well, I'll just tell you. I've got a little short. When I met Mr. Braithwaite, understand that I paid his phone bill 3 months or a couple months prior to this instance. So this is the second time that I paid his phone bill. I want to note that. But the only agreement that I made with Mr. Braithwaite and me and him made together was I was to help him and he was going to help me. And that was all that was ever done. All this rest of the story that you've heard from him is a story riddled with nothing but untruths fabricated by Mr. Braithwaite. And that's all I got to say about it. I mean, I agreed to help him and he agreed to help me. And, he waited until the house was done. And when the sink got put in, the floors were halfway done. I'm pretty sure he was probably hoping for carpet. And then at that point, that's when he created the dispute to separate, kick us off the property and go about his way. And he had a plan in this, and it's sad, but it's not the first time he's done it. He's done it to his own family.
Please stay specific to the claim and counterclaim.
Okay. Well, he was. The video I watched of him on TikTok saying that he was going to go dark because he couldn't pay his phone bill, I thought to myself right there. I felt for the guy because what was he going to go do? At that point, he was going to go either harm himself or rob a bank or do something stupid, you know. So I lent a helping hand out, and unfortunately, I got burned for it. And that's all I got to say about it. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Anything further, Ms. Griffin?
You mean did I want to ask any other questions of?
No.
No,
I mean in terms of any dispute of the claim and the counterclaim.
Yes, I believe that Mr. Braithwaite is an expert at these legal proceedings. He was evicted from the property in Maryland.
Objection, Your Honor.
What is your legal objection?
She has no firsthand knowledge of what she is now testifying under oath to be true. Again.
I do have documentation if Mr. Braithwaite would like to see it.
It's not open for dispute. The question is relevance to the claim or counterclaim. And the question is for me. I'll sustain the objective, and I ask you to stay focused on those two issues, please.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Braithwaite has lived in the house for 4 months and made no effort to better his situation. He is not a legal tenant. He has never paid a dime. He did some painting. I will admit to that. I found that out after all of this blew up. But like Chris Lord said, he said, I was going to help him and he was going to help me. So I was not a part of that. I own the property. And I already had an agreement with Ramey Harper, with Mr. Harper. So that was the whole focus of doing the repairs, was to prepare the house for Ramey Harper, Mr. Harper, whom I had an agreement with. We entered in an agreement back in November of last year. And so that was our goal, was to get the house in good living condition. Mr. Harper had some things that he was going to do to it. He wanted to, he wants to put refrigerated air in. I know that was one of Mr. Braithwaite's harassing texts. He demanded that I fix the swamp cooler. But Mr. Harper and I already had an agreement that he wanted to put refrigerated air in. He had actually already moved 2 loads of his belongings into the house when Mr. Braithwaite arrived. He had already started moving. And Coy Griffin and Chris Lord, with the supervision of a deputy, removed Mr. Harper's belongings from the house because he was worried. He had some family treasures and some things that he's a hat maker. He had moved some equipment.
Ma'am?
Yes.
While I can appreciate that, I need you to stay relevant to disputing the claim or furtherance of your counterclaim only,
okay.
Please.
Okay. All right. I don't believe that that Mr. Braithwaite is entitled to any monetary compensation, because he has already cost us about $4,500, in addition to putting a stop to the renovation. So, because nobody could go in there and work, nothing could be done. He just sat there in the house and Coy and Chris were trying to make the improvements, and every time they even, I know one day, Coy had to go over and get some pipe fittings that were under a tree or in the shed, I don't know. Anyway, and Mr. Braithwaite saw him out there and called the police on him. He couldn't set foot on the property. So I don't believe that Mr. Braithwaite is entitled to any monetary compensation. We have all suffered as a result of this wreck. And I'm just going to put myself on the mercy of the court for some relief. Mr. Braithwaite has already relocated back to the East Coast. As he said earlier, I wasn't sure where he was, actually. I knew that he wasn't in the house anymore, but I didn't know where he was. So if it's true, as he says, he's back on the East Coast, then, you know, and I think I would ask that we all be able to walk away from this today and realize everybody's mistakes. I'm very disappointed that the sheriff's office did not verify the ownership of the property. I would think that would usually be the first thing you would do.
That's between you and the sheriff. Please maintain relevance to what I have said.
Sorry, I know this is dragging on. I apologize.
It's not that. I just want you to only focus on the matters at hand.
Okay, I don't feel that Mr. Braithwaite is entitled to any compensation. He caused a lot of he caused us a lot of expense, and he caused us a lot of heartache. And so I would ask that the court deny Mr. Braithwaite's request.
Anything further from you, Ms. Griffin?
I won't take any more of your time. Thank you.
I'm here on purpose. It's not about that, but I sure do appreciate the courtesy all the same. Mr. Braithwaite, I look to you now for what you would put forth, if anything, if it is new information, but I want you to stay specifically to the counterclaim, and that is that attachment B. Do you have anything you wish to add regarding that only?
In reference to attachment B, Your Honor, I dispute. If I can go down the list, they paid for my airfare to come paint. I don't see why I should have to force to be paid that. As for cash apps totaling $700, that is not true. That is not. I dispute that. As for groceries, Judge, only they bought groceries several times, but I was one of 5 people eating, and they were eating more than I, and it includes the kids. So that's the only legitimate claim here is the groceries, but I'm responsible for 1/5 of that. Groceries again, cash. Coy, I dispute the figure that she gave. Coy did give me $200 cash the first 3 weeks. And there's the groceries again, but give me 1/5. I'm only responsible for 1/5 of that. If that, they ate more of it. The kids ate more than I did. All right. To Miss Courtney Griffin's claim, the clothing, $436.84 of clothes that did not fit me, I left there in the closet. I did not ask them to get me clothes. They offered to get me some work clothes, and I told them because I only bought 2 pair of work clothes. That's what I came there to do, was work. And they got my measurements or my sizes for some work clothes, and she got a bunch of other clothes that did not fit, and they're still there. The theater, Dollar Tree. Sure, she took me to the theater. She wants to let me. Okay, I'll take that $30. Fine, I did that. And the meal. Okay, she bought me a meal. I paid for the $34.76. I'll pay for that. But as far as these cash apps and the cash, I dispute all that, Your Honor. And there is no receipt, so I dispute the whole thing. I admit that he did pay before we made any agreement. He did pay my my phone bill, and he sent me $200 before there was ever an agreement. The week before we even talked about doing any painting. Other than that, I totally contest this whole attachment B, sir. I did have 3 questions for Ms. Griffin, if there's an appropriate time for that.
There is not. Any final words on the matter, Mr. Braithwaite?
Yes, Your Honor. I do have final words. She said, Ms. Griffin just said that she got another licensed quote contractor, given an estimate for painting of $3,700. I did want to ask her, did that include drywall, painting and finishing drywall? Because I also hung and finished drywall at the residence. Did her estimate also include demolition of 2 bathrooms, of a furnace? It did not include all that. That's why my request, the money I was seeking, was at first $7,500. What Ms. Griffin said about the water, I had running water at times. The water coming from the well is not drinkable, Your Honor. It's deadly. You cannot drink that water, and I believe she knew that. In reference to Ms. Griffin saying that I was harassing her with text, I did not harass her. I very politely informed her of things that were not working, functioning, to make that residence a livable residence. Because I was staying there. I was the tenant because they brought me there to that residence under an agreement, room and board, and it just was not a livable or sanitary, as you heard on the video. Mr. Griffin and Miss Griffin also said that it was not sanitary, but I was being forced there because I couldn't just drive my stuff away. I had no vehicle, I had no license, and I was 3 miles from any population, any store. And you heard defendant Griffin in the video yourself, Your Honor, ridiculing me, belittling me. I was professional. throughout the entire time. I did not lose it. I did not feed into them threatening me. I did not feed into any of that. I stayed focused on the reason that I was there, to get my driver's license. I did not need a place to stay. I am right now in my camper looking into the beautiful scenery out my window. Okay, I did not need to come to New Mexico. I came there to get my driver's license. That's what I went there to do. And that's what I did do. I did get my driver's license. And once I got my driver's license, I left the premises because I had no desire or need to be there around those hostile, lying individuals. Judge, that's all I have to say.
Thank you. Since the counterclaim, attachment B, was discussed, I look now, Ms. Griffin, for final word regarding attachment B.
I'm sorry, Your Honor. Can you repeat that, please?
Certainly. In regards to your counterclaim, the attachment B to your answer, after hearing Mr. Braithwaite's position, do you have anything you wish to add?
Only that, I did have documentation of all of that. I have receipts and which were in the exhibits that were not allowed, but I did have receipts for everything.
It was excluded, so
I know.
we can't discuss it. Do you have anything else to add, ma'am?
I would like to say that Mr. Braithwaite has done this before.
Objection, Your Honor.
You must
First-hand
stay.
knowledge.
It's that, but I want you to stay inside the confines of the counterclaim and attachment B. That is what I asked for, and please stay with that.
I'm sorry. I apologize, Your Honor. Coy did try and he did attempt to help Mr. Braithwaite get his driver's license. Like I said, I'm glad that they didn't follow through with any kind of paperwork. I think that would have been fraudulent. But the accusations that he has made, there was no contract. He's claiming there was a contract. There was no contract. There was no contract to do the work. There was no contract for him to live there. I knew nothing about him. This was not a place that I would have ever put someone to maintain a residence. It was a construction site. Yes, there were, the construction was ongoing. So it really was not livable. And I knew that. I would never have put anybody in there. And Mr. Braithwaite's complaints are vacant because he was asking me to create a nice living residence for him. That was never the plan. Never. I would like to take an opportunity if Mr. Harper is still on the line. He never had the chance to speak. Okay, that's all right.
We're done.
All right. So I believe that my family and I are out. When you weigh the balance, I believe that we are out more financially than Mr. Braithwaite has claimed. So I would ask that the court deny any claim that Mr. Braithwaite has to compensatory relief, because we supported him for 4 months, and he did some painting. If he had if we had paid him for the painting, it would only have been a day wage. It would not have been a contractor's wage. And so that I rest my case.
Thank you. There is much for me to go over, and it's not lost on me on the time of day, and so it seems appropriate that I call us to recess. In fact, I will reconvene at 1400 or 2 o'clock New Mexico time. That will afford everyone a chance to do what you would like to do, and then it gives me the opportunity to go through what has been presented versus the law, and then I will render judgment. So again, thank you all. Please.
Question, what, you're coming back when?
2 o'clock New Mexico time. In essence,
okay.
1 hour and 45 minutes from now.
Right. I got you. Okay, sir, I got you.
Thank you.
Then.
We will reconvene at that time. We'll be at recess. Thank you all.